okay? But what we see in Scripture is we've got the flesh, and the devil's at work, and he's a liar, a murderer, deceptive, false teaching, and so on. Okay? In the lives of Christians, as we noted, he says, the emphasis of the New Testament is not on the influence of demons. That should not be our preoccupation, but on the sin that remains in the believer's life, which is the flesh. Nevertheless, we should recognize that sinning, even by Christians, does give a foothold for some kind of demonic influence on our lives. Sort of wrapped up there. It's really, James 4 lays it out, doesn't it? They're all wrapped up together. And that brings us to the third thought. I'll be quick with these. But an essential attitude. An essential attitude. James, in this as well, spells out an essential attitude for this struggle. And this, we're going to say, is sort of foundational. And he repeats it twice, so I think we should pay attention to it. You know what it is? Humility. Humility. James 4, verse 6. God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Submit yourselves, therefore, to God. Then verse 10 brings it again. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will exalt you. Jonathan Edwards said, this great theologian, Jonathan Edwards, nothing sets a man so much out of the devil's reach as humility. Okay? But how are we to think about humility? It's like, it is the most elusive kind of thing to get a handle on. And, are we proud of our humility? It's such a trap. C.S. Lewis really was so aware of that in his book on screw tape letters, which are imaginary letters. And this is a senior devil giving advice to a junior devil. And he says, look, the most alarming thing in your last account of the patient, this is the person he's trying to tempt, is that he's making none of those confident resolutions which marked his original conversion. Originally, he's very proud. I'm going to walk in the perfect way of righteousness, all this stuff, right? No more lavish promises of perpetual virtue, I gather. Not even the expectation of an endowment of grace for life. Only a hope for the daily and hourly pittance to meet the daily and hourly temptation. This is where the guys come to, right? Oh, from the devil's point of view, this is very bad. I see only one thing to do at the moment. Your patient has become humble. Have you drawn his attention to the fact? All virtues are less formidable to us once the man is aware that he has them. But this is especially true of humility. Catch him at the moment when he's really poor in spirit and smuggle into his mind the gratifying reflection, by golly, I'm being humble. And almost immediately pride at his own humility will appear. What do we do with this? I just want to give one little thought. And here it is. When you think of humility, just start with this. A teachable spirit. Don't call it humility. Just for now, call it a teachable spirit. I think something that the demons love is a Christian whose attitude is, I know all I need to know. A teachable spirit, which is open to be taught from Scripture, is much better and much more arming. And we note that Jesus himself had learned from Scripture and used it in the temptations. Brings us to the fourth thing. We're really just wrapping things up. But a word about world, okay? So world means the society of men apart from God. Okay, depravity and the devil. You can't pull these things apart. We don't need to, all right? We don't need to. We just know that they're there. We've got the issue with the flesh, and we've got evil forces. Thirdly, an essential attitude, humility, and think first of all of a teachable spirit. The last thing is assessing the armor. James 4 is a really important passage. Noticed a lot of things in there, haven't we? Another important passage on this is Ephesians chapter 6, verses 10 to 20. Put on, says Paul, the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against what? The schemes of the devil. We do not wrestle against flesh and blood. Well, we do wrestle against flesh, but he means we don't wrestle against flesh and blood alone, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness. So that's next week. we're going to armor up next week, all right? The belt of truth, the breastplate of righteousness, the shoes of peace, the shield of faith, the helmet of salvation, and the sword of the Spirit. Do you think you need it? I think we all do. That's what we're going to embrace. For now, we're going to close with our hymn. It's number 572. 572, Onward, Christian Soldiers.